Welcome back to the game plan for what we call week two. I call it redemption week. Dallas fell 0-1 last week to the Philadelphia Eagles and are looking to strike back against the New York Giants. I'm your host Slater, and right across from me is my other host Mike. Mike, how you doing so far?
Doing good, man. Ready for this game versus the Giants at home.
Yep, so we got the New York Giants traveling to Arlington, Texas to play the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams are 0-1. Of course, both teams are 0-1 on the road. And the opening spread right now is -3.5 for the Dallas Cowboys, and ESPN has us projected winning 65.9% versus the Giants 33.9%. So I'll kind of open up the floor to you, man. I mean, what kind of initial thoughts? I mean, where are we at so far on this Friday afternoon?
This is a divisional matchup. It's a tough opponent. We know this team really, really well. Last year we played them, and it was a tough game for us.
Yeah.
Offensively and defensively, we had some significant injuries in that game. I know we're favored to win, and ultimately, I think we will. But I was more confident going into the Eagles game than I am with the Giants. And I say that just because, nobody wants to start the season out 0-2, you know, and this team plays us really, really tough. And they're going to want to win. They need to win every bit as much as we do, if not more, so I'm a little bit concerned about it, but that's kind of where I'm at. I'll go into some of my thoughts and my points on how the team's going to perform and what we need to be looking at. I feel confident that Dallas should and could win this game for sure, but it's definitely something that they can't overlook. They can't look past the Giants. They have to play at the level of effort and intensity and mistakeless football that they played, in Philadelphia. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at. What about you? How do you feel about it coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. We kind of just filmed our quick hits video before this, so
Sure.
talking about going 0-2 to start your season, it's a tough hole to dig out of. People may not see it that way, and they're like, oh, well, you still got, 15 more games. That's not the point. Starting 0-2 is a hole you have to climb out of. Not only starting 0-2 in your division, first off,
Right.
but 0-2 as a record. That's a tough hole to climb out of if you're trying to have playoff aspirations. For the Giants, yeah. I'm gonna call out Russell Wilson. He's playing for his career. I almost feel like, right. He's gone from Seattle, his glory days, to the Broncos. It didn't work out. He went to Pittsburgh. They moved on from him, and now he's with the Giants. And after losing last week, they're already calling for Jackson Dart, to come out there and take over.
Sure.
So there's a lot of pressure on this team to get it to work. And you also got Brian Daboll on the hot seat. So I'm sure starting 0-2 is not a good way to start that. So I feel really good for the Cowboys. I want to ask you, do you not feel good because you feel like it's a trap game? I've heard the term trap game being thrown around, or is it just more of the motives for the Giants?
It's I wouldn't say it's necessarily a trap game. I think that we're the stronger team, both
Yeah.
offensively and defensively. But this is a team that we see multiple times a year, every year. And if Dallas goes out there and they stumble and they shoot themselves in the foot and make mistakes, they can lose this game.
One hundred percent.
These are all professional athletes, and these teams are all full of talented players. No matter where they sit on the depth chart, it's hard to win in the NFL no matter what, right? So if they go out there and so to speak play with their food, and they find themselves down by 10 points, early in the game, they're going to be in trouble. But if they go out there and do just like they did against Philadelphia and be very intent and intentional about the level of effort that they play with and do what they know they can do because they just did it, they should have no issues winning this game. But there are some players over there, and one of my questions for you was what concerns you more from the Giants? Is it the offense or the defense?
For me, it's going to be the defense. That defensive line that they have built. It's got some star-studded names on it, right? Thibodeau,
Sure.
Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence. So it's going to be a challenge for our offensive line this week. Do I think it's more of a challenge than what Philadelphia has to offer? I think it's about the same.
Yeah,
But, these guys are going to be hungry and motivated. And after watching last week's films against the Commanders, I'm sure they feel embarrassed.
right.
So they're going to look to come out and try to embarrass Dallas, especially after everyone kind of giving some respect to Dallas for,
Sure.
competing. We're not taking no moral victories here, but, people are giving Dallas their credit for competing. Um, kind of I'm going to go back just a little bit. I know you just asked that, but um, I guess the main thing for Dallas is keep building on that Schottenheimer culture, right? So,
Right.
you kind of talked about being intent, being, fast, being physical. I'd like to see that continue, right? They talked about how, we motion 46% of the time. So let's continue on that trend. And so that's what I'm really looking for this week is that Schottenheimer culture and that Schottenheimer trend, right? Keep continuing what you're doing. Don't make it just because it was week one, we're going to go away from it. And now we're back to 5 yard hitches with no motion, right?
Right.
At least make it look fancy before you do the 5 yard hitch. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give the floor back to you, but I definitely feel that the defense is more the concern, and it's because of that defensive line and the challenge up front that we will have. Do I think it's more challenging than Philly? No. Do I think it's about the same? Yes. But I'm really looking for that offensive line development and our running backs to kind of execute in those holes like they did last week.
Yeah. I would have to say the defensive line is significant. Lawrence and Burns as a combination, they're a bit of a problem, but
Yep.
I don't think it's any more talented than what Dallas saw in Philadelphia. And as a total defense, I think it's less talented overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not so that they need to overlook it or think any lesser of it. This is a beat you up, bruise you down, tough, in your face kind of football team. That's how they play. I think the offense is just a little bit scarier for me.
Really?
Yeah, because we took a look at them, and they run a lot of heavy personnel. They run a lot of big body 12 personnel, two tight end stuff. Which means they just want to beat you up on the line of scrimmage and try to force the ball 2 to 4 yards every play, and take shots over the middle when they can, and they have the tools to do it. Russell Wilson has the ability to, scramble a little bit. He's really good at moving forward in the pocket. He can get loose
Mm-hmm.
on you. I don't think he has the speed he used to have. But I think with Russell Wilson, you're going to have to disrupt him by coming right down the middle in his face. Because he doesn't typically run to the outside. He'll get super small and take off running up the middle of the line. I definitely think there are some advantages we can take of some of their linemen. I look at, I think it's Schmidt, their center.
Yeah.
He has a little bit of trouble with his footwork. He's got a real awkward way of chopping his feet, when he's taking on blocks that are coming right up the middle on him. But, Russell Wilson can still heave the ball,
Yeah.
right? And he's got a player that can grab it from anywhere. So it's like one of those things where, if we're beating him up and we don't get to him in time, he'll throw it up. He has no problems chucking that thing up there and putting it in a bucket.
Yeah.
So that concerns me just a little bit. And I think with this game, they're going to try some things they probably didn't try as much as they should have. I think that they're going to try to use Scatabo a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
because he's a battering ram, so
Yeah.
he's going to fall for 3 or 4 yards every time he gets the ball. And I think they'll definitely try to take advantage of some of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be their game plan is they're just going to try to smash the ball forward. And when they see an opportunity, they're just going to heave it up because they have nothing to lose,
Yeah.
so it's really their only opportunity.
I agree with that, and I think the biggest thing is over the years we've noticed, at least I've noticed with the Brian Dayball's offense, it's always about taking what you can get and making it 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4. It's kind of like
Right.
same way with Philly, right? You want to keep them out of that 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2 range because they can tush push it twice, right? It's the
Sure.
same game plan with the New York Giants. You're trying to keep them out of that short range, and if you put them behind the sticks, they're in trouble because they really don't have the offensive firepower to just
No.
recover from those yards. So I kind of expect a big game from our, defensive front again. And, I'm hoping that, our defensive ends, Sam Williams, Nealon, Izaraku, they can kind of learn from last week and kind of step up to the plate again and being able to force them behind the sticks. I expect Clark Kent, our Superman on the defensive line, to do his job again. Like you said, if he's on that center, I think
Yeah,
it's gonna be hey, get out my way, let me do my thing,
right, exactly.
So I'm looking forward to that matchup. We gotta keep them behind the sticks, and we've
Yeah,
really got to we got to come out hot on the defensive side. You saw last week that the offense was on fire. I don't know if they'll come out like that again. I hope they do, but in the off chance
sure.
that they don't, because both teams are kind of playing for their lives this early. You're really hoping that the defense can really stop or at least prevent touchdown drives. There's a big
Yeah,
difference between 7 and 3 at the beginning of a game. So
100%. To sum it up, I think if Kenny Clark, aka Clark Kent, Superman, if he has a good game in the middle, and we can minimize what they're going to try to do with Scatabuski, and we just keep an eye on Robinson
mm-hmm.
on third downs,
Yep.
in control, because they use him in a lot of stuff. They put him in trips, they motion him a lot. He's their third down guy, and he's really tricky and crafty, and he's good at what he does. If they can just minimize that stuff, I think we'll suffocate them over the course of the game, and it won't be a big problem. But I think that's going to be what they're going to have to do. So we'll see on that. But what position group are you expecting to be, I guess, a concern or a problem for the Giants, or from either one?
So concern as like a threat to a problem or like a problem for us. I'm sorry.
A problem for us. So if you're looking at the Giants, what position group do you think is going to matter most to Dallas as far as defending?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the wide receivers. I mean, it's a tough challenge to cover our wide receiver core, no matter how you look at it. We have C.D. Lambs, George Pickens, and then afterwards, I'm hoping to get more Turpin involved. Hopefully, we can get Tolbert to step up to the plate a little bit. But I'm kind of feeling a George Pickens kind of day. And maybe that's just everyone's kind of focusing on CD after the drops and saying he's going to be a whole new monster, but. I hope to find ways to connect to George Pickens in the long run. So it's just kind of one of those things where I think the Giants need to really be concerned on how they can defend the wide receiver group.
Right.
So, and then on top of that, for the Giants, I'm really, I mean, if I had to pick a threat that the Giants have, it's probably honestly going to be. Uh, I don't think their wide receivers are as scary. I mean, I know people are scared of Wan'Dale Robinson and stuff. He's a big third down guy, but it just all depends on how Malik Neighbors plays that day. I think the Commanders did a really good job last week containing him. You saw a lot of double coverage, like you obviously the corner, the safety had him, but that second person always seemed like that linebacker would drift on the outside. So if it was like 3rd and 6, right, they know they're looking for those little in routes, out routes, and so if it's an in route, that linebacker steps up, right? If it's an out route, that corner's crashing it. So that's just kind of how I feel about that one.
Yeah, I think for me it's going to be the tight end fullback group.
Yeah.
I don't think Tyrone Tracy's really going to eat us up or beat us up too much, but I think if he's used adequately in combination, with the tight ends and even Scatabo, if they put him out there simultaneously, I think they can move the ball on us in that way in the right combination out of the big sets they already like to run. So I think if we can contain most of that, that will take away at least one of their dimensions on offense. And then it's just a matter of getting in front of Russell Wilson and breaking up that connection. Because I think we have more than enough, defensive back coverage to stop him and control Malik Neighbors, but Wan'Dale Robinson can get loose on you. So I don't fear it too much, but I think that it's definitely something that's going to have special attention paid to it, or they will move the ball 3 or 4 yards at a time all night.
Can the Cowboys expect Jadon Blue to play this week, or do you still think he's a healthy scratch?
Ooh,
Because, I mean, I haven't
man.
heard much about him. The only news we heard about Jadon Blue was the consistency factor, right? So, are they going to roll with the Williams and Sanders train again and give it another opportunity until, the Schottenheimer culture deems fit of Jadon Blue and the consistency side. I haven't seen any reports of him playing tomorrow, but I was just curious if maybe you've seen something different or if your gut kind of tells you, like, hey, yeah, like, I think he's going to be on there tomorrow and we're going to roll with it.
Oh man, I don't think he plays.
I can agree with that. I think Schottenheimer kind of called it out earlier this week.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about that one. Mozzie Smith, healthy scratch still.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Yeah, and then of course you've got we'll kind of since I'm on the injury train here, we've got the injury with Deron Bland. He's out
Right.
this week. We don't know
Sure.
how long he's going to be out. They say it's week to week. I'm hoping that hopefully he's back by the Green Bay game. I'd like him back for the Chicago game, but I don't think we're in necessarily too much trouble, especially knowing that he was kind of our nickel guy. But have you
Right.
heard the rumor of Wanye Thomas going to take in that position?
Yeah, I've seen that. I think that's probably the best idea. He's a veteran. He knows the team. He's been around. He knows how to play. He knows what to do. He knows the guys well enough that he can go out there and contribute. I think it's going to be a little bit of a rotational thing. I don't know if there were some talks about Zion Childress maybe coming up to play a little bit, and Reddy Stewart. So it may be a combination of those three guys, in different situations coming up to help. Just to touch back on Blue, though,
Yeah.
I think that with Blue, I don't think he'll be ready this week. I think he's probably getting close, and I think once he reaches that point where they feel like he's been consistent enough, I still think they'll push a little bit further past that just to ensure that consistency is going to stick around. And they'll probably wait till there's an opportunity to kind of use him to our benefit and almost as a surprise, right? So it's like, yes, he's ready. He can definitely add some talent to the team, and he's an effective tool. So let's showcase him, versus an opponent that isn't ready for him, And
Hmm.
I think you know where I'm going with this, because if our running back team is and our they're playing up to the level that they should, it gives Blue that opportunity to kind of sit back, build up some consistency and knowing his assignments so that when he does come out there, he's 100% ready to contribute and he's effective, right?
Yeah.
My gut feeling is we probably won't see him until we're home versus the Packers.
Hmm.
Uh, is what I think is going to happen. We'll be at that game, by the way, but
Yeah.
I definitely think, unless I'm completely wrong, and I could be, I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's what my gut's telling me.
Yeah. What a wild ride. So for our viewers here, we have tickets to the Cowboys Packers game, and we bought these tickets like 2 or 3 months ago, just kind of for the hype of we've never been to a Cowboys game. One, two, we never been to a Sunday night game. So if we've never been to a game, we've never been to a Sunday night. So we wanted to go to like kind of one of the most fun games to go to, and especially if it being the Packers. Micah
Right,
Parsons trade happens, and all of a sudden we're like, wow, like we're like, wow, now we can still see Micah Parsons, except for he's going to be in the green and gold now, or green and yellow.
right,
I don't know which way
yeah,
they call it, but
right,
it's gonna be a wild game. So, but anyways, that's weeks ahead. But kind of back, I maybe I'm just not too deep into this week, but it just kind of feels like the Cowboys should come out here and just dominate. I mean, they should. I mean, it's just one of those things where you look at the roster, and if you were going to compare QB room versus QB room, RB room, and so on, it feels like we got the check marks on most of our side, except for maybe the defensive ends, just because they have the names. It's not really like just because they have the names on the sheet. If you were to do a sheet by sheet, I kind of feel we own that kind of check mark box on every one of them, right? I believe that we have the better roster overall, but like you said, it's going to be about coming out there and coming up to hit them in the mouth because the Giants aren't just going to roll over. They never have.
no,
And maybe I'm playing into the fact where I've seen the stats all week where like Dak has not lost to the Giants since
right,
2016, and so you're like, well, I got Dak Prescott, so.
right, and that's my biggest fear, is that
Mm-hmm.
the players and the team. I don't think it's the case. I truly believe that what Schottenheimer is instilling in the team right now is catching hold, and it's going from theory to fact. Uh, I don't think they'll do that. I mean, it's possible. We've seen it happen before. But, like I said, if they just do what they did last week and they have the same mental focus and preparation that they used for the Eagles game, there should be no reason to, because, like you said, when you look at position versus position, Giants versus Cowboys, we are better in almost every category, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of those things. If we do not attack at the right points and we make mistakes, these guys are still professional NFL athletes and coaches, and that's
Yep.
why you play the game. Mistakes can get you, and that's what it all comes down to me is Russell Wilson is not afraid to chuck this ball up on a hope and a prayer to one of his very good receivers,
Yeah.
and they're playing to win. I think that with a loss here for these guys, it has a season impacting consequence, right? So it's
Yeah.
like they have to do whatever it takes to win, right? So we just cannot allow them to have those opportunities to just throw a 50 or 60-yard bomb down the field. And that's what they're going to have to do, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
He's just going to have to drop back and chuck it up and hope that his receiver can get underneath it because we are more talented. We're a more talented defensive line altogether. We're a more talented offensive line altogether. Our wide receiver core is more talented. Our running backs are more talented. Our quarterback is more talented. But they're talented in some positions enough that they can still get the job done if
Mm-hmm.
we fail to go out there and handle business. So as long as they don't play with their food, we should take this home all day.
Yeah. So let's talk game plans a little bit here. Kind of name
Sure.
of our. Let's kind of talk game plans. For if you're looking, your coach Schonheimer. Okay, your name is Brian Schonheimer. What is your offensive scheme this week? Are you looking to be a little bit more run heavy? We saw Javonte Williams with 15 carries last week. Are you looking to kind of like gunsling it like you did the first? I mean, which way are you kind of leaning? Or are you kind of leaning? I mean, I guess you could say balance, but are you looking to kind of give the running game a little bit more opportunity, or are you kind of coming out with what you did in Philly?
Honestly, I think this is a time of possession game.
Mm-hmm.
I think the longer we hold the ball and we keep Russell Wilson off the field, I feel like that's better for us, right? Because the more we minimize his opportunities to run out there and just chuck the ball around and give them, splash plays and explosive play opportunity, the more confident I feel that we can take over the game and win. So I'd say we need to run the ball, a little bit of play action, and definitely utilize Pickens and CD Ferguson, to keep us moving the chains. But I definitely think this is a time of possession, 20 to 25 carries kind of game. Just
Mm-hmm.
let Dak control it and minimize Russell Wilson's time on the field.
Yeah. Is the common consensus between maybe just you and I, or maybe all Cowboys fans, does George Pickens need to be more involved, or who's your player you're looking to get more involved at? Who wasn't really involved last week? CeeDee Lamb, Javonte Williams, were your obvious guys, but are you looking for more Sanders, more Pickens, more Turpin? I mean, is there an offensive guy you want to see more of?
For me personally, I want to see a little bit more of Javonte Williams, and I would really like to see more of Turpin.
Yeah. I mean, I almost threw out the option of Terrence Steele. Do you want to see more runs to the right? It seemed like we ran a lot to the left last week, or all the highlight plays came off of the Tyler Smith and Guyton side. Maybe we run some towards Steele. What's Steele's ability right now? So I agree with that. I definitely would like to see more Pickens, being able to kind of target him a couple more times and give him
Sure.
the routes and abilities, and maybe connect on the deep ball, kind of start building that relationship, because I think it's going to pay off down the road. All right, now defensively, we ran 100% zone last week. So with
Yeah.
knowing Deron Bland is out, are you still kind of leaning on the zone game, or are you looking to go man to man and Trayvon's fallen neighbors? How do you kind of minimize the neighbors?
Yeah, I think they need to do the same thing. I think that definitely have Trayvon shadow
Yep.
Malik Neighbors everywhere he goes. And, especially when you got a missing component to your team that you had success with, you don't want to come in and switch totally from going zone into man against the kind of quarterback who, is capable of getting small in the pocket, running through the middle, or just dropping back, and chucking it up to a one-on-one receiver defender situation. So I definitely think they just need to continue what worked and give him a little enough confusion as to what receivers are going to be open
Yep.
that our defensive line can take advantage of their weaknesses, especially in their centers and guards, and push up in front of Russell because he's a small guy, so it's not like
Hmm.
if you're right in his face, it minimizes his opportunities to throw an accurate deep pass. But I feel like if you're running man on him all day, he's at some point he's just going to chuck it up and hope. So I don't want him to have those opportunities. I would really like to see the Cowboys just come out and run it down their throat all
Hmm.
night long, and then kind of do what the Packers did to Jaden Daniels and the Commanders last night, where they just charge them every time they drop back, just fearless warrior charge,
Yeah.
and make them just not have timing, not have pacing, and just throw it and run it out of sheer survival.
Yeah. No, I agree. If you had to choose between Leufau and James Houston for more snaps, which one are you choosing? They both deserve
Oh
more snaps, but if you
man,
had to choose one, which one are you choosing?
that is a gnarly question,
Because
man.
Cowboys fan base loves them both, and they both deserve more snaps. Don't get me wrong, but if you had to choose one that you want to see more of, which one?
You probably know my answer to this, and this is no slight on Houston. I've definitely watched him and really like him, but from the moment that we drafted Maurice Luafau, me having a linebacker background, that I really loved that, and I loved the way he played, and I think he's going to be a long time impact for this team. So I really think that he deserves it. And I'm kind of giving him the priority because it's first come first served. Every time he's on the field, he delivers,
Mm-hmm.
in whatever he's doing, whether it's, defense or special teams, or just being a leader and someone who, gets the team fired up. So I definitely would like to see him get some more reps.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we can get both and we won't have to see, one of them over the other. But I definitely want to see Maurice Luafau out there a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the Leufau one because he's very explosive, he's very fast, and of course, he brings the youth to our linebacker core. Not saying our linebacker core is old, but it's one of those things where at defensive end, you've got all that capital invested into those second round picks. So I'd like to see them more over James Houston, looking at the future. But
Yeah.
looking at the current, Leofau is definitely a guy that I want to see out there because I'm hoping by the end of the year when we're starting to hit that playoff stride, if we're there, it's
Yes.
overshown Leofau
Right.
then Sanborn or Kenneth Murray, right? So
Right.
I really like Leofau. I think he's a blitzing demon. I think he can do what Overshown provide for us. Maybe not at the level of an Overshown, but some similar level for you. And he can really contain, like last week, he could contain Jalen Hurts to stay in that pocket a little bit better with that spine or wherever, right?
Sure.
Russell Wilson may try to roll out. So if that happens, you just send that little missile onto him, right? So I agree with you. But man, what a tricky situation we're in this week.
Yeah, it's tough, and I can't wait till we get that combination of our three guys. Getting them all out there at the same time. You got Ezeraku, young guy, new to the team. He's coming up. He's trying to earn his star essentially, and then we got Maurice Lufau, who I think's on his way up, and then we got Overshown. And if all these guys can take advantage of every opportunity they're given and grow together, I mean that's the future of our team
Yep.
defensively, and I can't wait till we get to the point. We really like Overshown. It's really unfortunate that he's not on the field because that is another true game changer. Just in the attitude that he plays the game with, and the energy that he brings to the team when he's out there on the field. I mean, you want to cheer for him. You can't help it, but he really does play very well, and we miss him on the team. But Maurice Lilifal does that too, just in his own way. So I guess that brings me to my question: is from everyone who played on the defense last week, who do you think needs to do more this week? Like, who are you watching this week that kind of felt like needs to? I wouldn't say necessarily step up, but you need to
Yeah,
see some more from this week versus the Giants.
man, I'm kind of split on that one. It's a really good question. I don't know. I hate to say player. I'm gonna say really Kenneth Murray in particular, but I'm really talking about the linebacker group as a whole. Trust each other, fill your hole, and trust that when the guy cuts back, that your other linebacker is gonna be there, or when you make him cut back, that your awesome defensive tackles, your defensive ends are there swarming. Right?
Right.
Don't let them bounce to the outside. So that's where I'm kind of at. I'm really talking to Kenneth Murray because he was kind of the one who got routed up a couple times. He seemed a little slow and a little jumpy, but he did miss training camp and he did miss preseason, so I can see why that happened. So I'm gonna pick him in particular to step up, but
Sure.
really the linebacker group as a whole, trust your reads, roll with it, and trust the linebacker next to you. Don't play hero ball. Play good fundamental football.
100%. I think for me, it's going to be the combination of Dante Fowler and Ezeraku for
Yeah.
different reasons. For Fowler, just because, I think he got off to a really, really slow start versus the Eagles, and he wasn't very impactful. Um, not to knock his ability. I think he's great, but I would like to see him get off to a little bit faster of a start because
Yeah.
he didn't really start to come on until the second half, after the weather delay and all that. And then for Ezeraku, I think that he got picked on a little bit just because he was a rookie and he's out there to learn. And, I think he's got to, take what he learned about getting caught. He got caught and hung up a couple times because he's trying to run straight through those tackles. And, you can't always do that because they're going to hold you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
some of Jalen Hurts' biggest runs were, because of that. So I'd like to
Yeah.
see Azaraku, take that stuff and learn from it and show growth. Yeah. And just a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not asking for 3 sacks. I just want to see him be able to break off of that block and get to where he needs to be and seal that end well enough. So um,
Yeah.
one's a veteran, one's a rookie. So they both have to do what they got to do. And
Yeah.
I think they'll do it.
For Dante, I felt that preseason rust kind of kick in, right? He didn't play in the
Yeah.
preseason, so I kind of felt that, like, getting off to a hot start for your season rust kind of like kick in, right? So it's kind of like my reason for Kenneth Murray. It's like, get off to a faster start. Let's show that veteran impact you're supposed to have on our team. And then I love the Ezeraku one. I think he's got so much potential, and it was so close last week, but like you said, he's got to be able to have the ability to get quicker with his hands, make sure people stay off of him. And so I think the Giants matchup with the offensive line this week would be a really good opportunity, and especially if a quarterback who may not be as mobile, so you can learn how to really kind of like bull rush or, really get around the tackles,
Yeah.
swiping those arms down and getting home. So I definitely like that. All right. You got one more question?
Nope.
I got one more for you. Give me your offensive MVP and your defensive MVP for the game for the Cowboys.
So offensive MVP, I think, will be Dak,
Mm-hmm.
and our defensive MVP will be Trayvon Diggs.
Oh, you stole mine, man. I
I
was
think
thinking
it'll be
Trayvon.
Trayvon Diggs. So I'm trying to play the game in my head as
Yeah.
to what I know this is going to come down to. Is Trayvon's coverage of Malik Neighbors because that's where Russell Wilson's going to go when he's desperate,
Yep.
and we're going to make him desperate. So and we got Trayvon Diggs, so I'm not worried about that at all. I'm sure Malik Neighbors is going to get his grabs, but at the most important times, our defense is going to step up and do what it's supposed to do. I have no worries about that. So Dak and Trayvon.
Man, I'm so on board with the Trayvon. With Bland being out, and I don't know if they'll do man and they'll follow him straight up, but I'm ready kind of for
Sure.
that Trayvon like step up game. I know he's not really. I think he talked about how he's not ready for 100% snaps, but we'll see how the game goes. If you're not in a tight game the whole time, you'll be able to take them off the field and stuff. But
Right.
it's gonna be big on him to be able to slow Neighbors down to start the game, and then offensively. Man, I gotta go with George Pickens. I'm hoping George Pickens just has one of those days and is able to kind of not only when CD gets his yards, but be able to provide that relief to Dak Prescott. I almost said Jake Ferguson too, right? Because you saw a
Yeah.
couple of those drops he had last week, and it seems like Jake Ferguson at home with Dak Prescott, and especially against like the Giants and these teams that are kind of like heavy, in the box, he
Yeah.
seems to thrive off that. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm gonna go with George Pickens and Trayvon Diggs with you.
Yeah, I can definitely see something like Ferguson being very impactful to the game for not the bright star shining reasons. You know what I mean? Not because he caught six passes for two touchdowns, but just because he kept Dak clean for
Yep.
Dak to throw the ball to Pickens. I definitely think Pickens is going to be important because I think there's going to be times when Dak needs someone to get a ball right
Yeah.
to get a first down, and he's gonna look for Pickens, and I think he'll be there because I really have no doubts that the Giants are going to come to play hard, right? And we're definitely going to have to be in full force to win. So I definitely think that could happen too with Ferguson. Just being out there to block and be who he is. He's scrappy and he's the first one to get testy. So I love it. But yeah.
Any final thoughts? Any pregame speech you would give to the boys? You got you
No, I
got
don't have. I don't have a speech. But who do you think? What do you think the final score is?
Ooh, final score. I want to say like 24-14 Dallas. I mean, I'm not expecting a high scoring because division games don't end up being high scoring, but I expect it to be enough to where you feel like you're dominating them, and at the end of the game, you go up by 10, and the Giants just don't have enough time to kind of get something rolling.
I'm gonna go 31-20.
Woo!
Yeah,
Dang, high scoring. So to 20, is it three touchdowns and a missed 2 point, or is it two touchdowns and two field goals?
two touchdowns, two field goals.
Okay. I know if it was like a garbage time touchdown, they have to go for two to try to get within that 31 striking range.
It very well could be, but I think the Giants are going to do enough. Like I've said all night, Russell Wilson is not afraid to chuck one up and
Yep.
do it enough, and eventually you're going to find a hole. So I think that will keep them around early. But
Yep.
I think as the game goes on, we'll wear them down, and we're just a more talented, more powerful team playing at home.
Yep.
So I think we'll start running it up mid third quarter and take it on home. Probably I'm sure there will be a turnover in there at some point.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. As long as we win, I'm okay with
A
it.
hundred
But
percent.
so that's pretty much it, guys. That's the game plan for the week. We've kind of built it. We kind of talked about it. If you got any thoughts, if you want to say anything, leave it in the comments. We're here to open debate. We're open to discussion. We're here to connect with other Cowboy fans. Leave a like, subscribe. Let us know that what maybe you want to hear. Let us know what you don't want to hear. Until then, we'll see you after the game for the post game reaction.
Later.